What's up, Star Wars nerds? Welcome to another episode of Bread on Fett. On today's episode, why it's finally time to give some more Empire Strikes Back love in the vintage collection. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 113 of Brett on Fett. Before we get into our main topic, just a reminder that the SWTVC March Madness is currently underway. The voting for the first round of 64 is about 3/4 the way through at the time I'm recording this video. There's been a lot of exciting matchups so far. Voting is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So go to SWTVC's Instagram page. There's a link tree there. When you click on the link tree, it'll give you the link to the Google page where you can cast your votes. Again, that's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So please participate. It's a lot of fun and it's very important because Hasbro does keep an eye on the results of the March Madness event. So go vote for the all-new figure that you want most. Also, just a reminder that I will be attending ICCCon in Nashville, Tennessee this May. And if you go on now and buy tickets in advance, you can use the code BrettFett10 to get 10% your tickets. And so yeah, again, that's BrettFett10. So don't forget to use that code if you're gonna buy tickets for that event, and I hope to see you guys there. All right, so I don't think it's any secret that The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film. In fact, it's my favorite movie in general of all time. And I wanted to talk about why I think we need some more Empire Strikes Back love in TVC. Now, I want to preface this video by first acknowledging that we are missing a ton of figures in the vintage collection from the prequel trilogy. And in fact, if you go back to my older videos from last year, I have a series called MIAFF, or Missing in Action Figure Form, where I started with the episode 1, episode 2, and then I moved on to episode 3, talking about some of the most important characters from those films we still do not have in the vintage collection. So I do think it's very important that Hasbro revisits the prequel trilogy, especially this year with the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. It's been kind of disappointing that it really hasn't been that many announcements for figures from Revenge of the Sith, although very happy to see the Anakin Skywalker stuff that's coming out. But we still need more of that. But that all being said, I am an original trilogy guy. I grew up on the original trilogy. I grew up in the 80s, and The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite film. And I want to take a look at some of the things we really are missing from that film, or major updates that we really need. Now, TVC did get off to a very good start on Empire Strikes Back with the very first wave. The first 11 figures were all from The Empire Strikes Back. Now, this is back in 2010. But what you might find hard to believe is that since 2010, Hasbro has only put out a total of 18 carded figures from The Empire Strikes Back. 18 in 15 years from arguably the best Star Wars film. Now, I know a lot of people like Jedi or New Hope, but when you're talking about original trilogy films, Empire is in general considered one of the better movies. And so to only have a total of 29 individually carded figures from Empire Strikes Back is pretty sad, especially when you compare it to Return of the Jedi, which has 64 individual VC carded releases compared to 29 from The Empire Strikes Back. And if you want to jump outside of the original trilogy figures, just take a look at the Mandalorian figures, where we have 44 individually carded VC figures from The Mandalorian. And that's a franchise where you had figures just starting to come out in 2020. So in 5 years, we've gotten 44 individually carded figures from The Mandalorian. But in the last 15 years, we've only gotten 18 from The Empire Strikes Back. Those are staggering differences. And we're not talking about a controversial film from the franchise, something that the fans are divided on. In general, everyone likes The Empire Strikes Back. I have never met somebody that just does not care for The Empire Strikes Back. Even the biggest sequel trilogy fans or prequel trilogy fans still like The Empire Strikes Back. So I want to jump around and showcase a few Empire Strikes Back stuff from my collection as talking points on why we need more figures from that film. Alright, so I want to kick things off by talking about the Hoth part of the film, or the opening act of Empire Strikes Back. I do want to acknowledge we recently got the new Hoth Stormtrooper or Snowtrooper, and that is an excellent step in the right direction towards getting more ESB. Now, unfortunately, I have not gotten that Snowtrooper in the mail yet. I don't know when I'm going to get it, but I'm hearing he is awesome. From everything I've seen online, he looks awesome, so very excited to get those guys. Although I would add, we definitely need to go ahead and get some army builder packs of the Snowtroopers. Alright, so I've got the TVC Hoth Luke and Luke's Tauntaun here. Now, I did steal the idea from Tim, who I believe stole it from someone else, to swap the head out for the new Farm Boy Luke and put a hat on from one of the Rebel Soldier Army Builder packs, and it looks a lot better. The head sculpt is not great from that Hoth. I'm not saying we need a new Hoth Luke at this time, but it would be nice to eventually get an updated version of Hoth Luke, since this is a TVC 1.0 figure, so it's a bit outdated, but I would say that is low priority at the moment. Now on the left side, we have the TVC Hoth Rebel Soldiers that are in the line, including that Army Builder pack of these guys. That was a pretty nice set, but it is an outdated figure with the swivel hips. And the other thing is they're all indoor Echo base soldiers. The only outdoor fighting Hoth Rebel soldier we have is this guy, who is really outdated. You know, these guys outside for the most part had the white coats. And so we actually need more of these, but I do not want to army build with this older version. We're going to need an all new army builder Hoth Rebel soldier with the white coats. Now switching over to Imperials, the only Hoth Imperial figure we have besides the brand new Snowtrooper is the AT-AT Commander, which some would consider Veers, and this thing is extremely outdated. This is the same exact figure that came with the Legacy Collection AT-AT back in like 2010, so it's just extremely outdated. And speaking of Veers, we really need the officer version of Veers so we can get out this original 96 card back. He doesn't need to be in black. I would make it accurate and have the, you know, the light brown uniform for Veers, and that's something Hasbro could easily do with that all new Imperial officer mold they have. Now you can't command AT-ATs without the AT-AT driver. Now this is a terrible version. This is the one that actually came with the Legacy AT-AT. There is a better version that came on a Rebels card back, but it's not fully articulated. And the bottom line is we need an AT-AT driver in the Vintage Collection. You've got to get this classic card back into the line. It's a fan favorite original 96. Everyone loves AT-ATs. Let's get the AT-AT driver. Now real quickly, I want to talk about Beasts, and when it comes to the Hoth, I really only think we need 2 more Beasts. One would be a Han Solo specific Tauntaun, since the Tauntaun we're looking at was marketed as Luke Skywalker's Tauntaun. Now I don't know the difference exactly, but maybe they could figure out a way to give us a Han Tauntaun that the belly can be opened up to put Luke inside to reenact that famous scene. Then of course, the only other beast we need from Hoth is the Wampa. This is a big one. I would say this is probably more important than getting us a Han Solo Tauntaun. Gotta have a Wampa in the line. The last Wampa we've gotten 3 3/4, I think, was from a Last Jedi packaging, and that one was okay, but I'd like to see an all-new one, very similar to the Black Series. You're looking at the Black Series version of the Wampa, so really gotta get him in 3 3/4. Next, I'd also like to see a Probe Droid official TVC release. Now, we have gotten a very, very good Probe Droid for the 3 3/4 scale. It was released in this Probe Droid Vader 2 pack with the Last Jedi labeling, but I would love to see them reissue that figure in the official TVC line. I think that would be an easy win for Hasbro. Now this is just for fun and certainly not a priority, but with the new Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi coming out from A New Hope, it would be really cool if they could leverage that mold to use a Obi-Wan spirit from the Hoth scene where he comes to visit Luke. I just think that would be really cool. This is the old Power of the Force 2 version, and it's, you know, pretty terrible, but it would be a pretty cool release that could be reused for other scenes in Empire Strikes Back as well as Return of the Jedi. Now, as far as vehicles are concerned for Hoth, I think we're in pretty good shape. This is the Legacy version of the AT-AT, or Shadows of the Dark Side version officially, and it's a great vehicle. They reissued it for TVC already. They could reissue it again just so newer collectors get their hands on it, but I don't think we need an all new one, frankly. And this is the Snowspeeder they released for TVC early on, and it's a great vehicle. I have this one hanging up in my room. Really like this Snowspeeder, so I think we're in good shape there. And last but certainly not least for Hoth, we've got to get a Han Solo Hoth gear in the line. This is a very important version of Han. Classic card back, classic figure from the line. They've given us the Echo base Han, so that's technically Hoth, but that is not the one I'm talking about, obviously. We need the Snow Gear version of Han in the line. Give us that Han, give us his Tauntaun, and I'll be a happy camper. I'm really surprised I haven't heard much of a push for this one from the community. I can't recall hearing any of my fellow YouTubers talk about this figure. Maybe they have here and there, but definitely not pushing it on a regular basis. And it didn't even make the cut for the 64 figures in this year's March Madness. And I don't know that it's ever made the cut for March Madness in the past. I'd have to go back and check. And it's just disappointing because this is such an iconic version of Han Solo. When I think of the first act of Empire Strikes Back, this is the version of Han that I think of. So definitely got to get this one in TVC. All right, I'm not officially leaving Hoth just yet. I want to talk about the medical droids. 21B is one of my favorite droids, and I just love that scene where they rehabilitating Luke. This is an awesome scene, and this is a really cool droid. This is the Power of the Force 2 version. This is from like 1997. We have not gotten a new 21B since then. It was a great figure for the time, but it's extremely outdated. There's hardly any articulation. This is basically like a 5 POA figure, maybe even less, because the legs really don't move. So I would love to see what Hasbro would do for an all-new 21B figure. Now, FX7, on the other hand, even though this is from Power of the Jedi, long time ago, I think it came out around 2001, maybe even 2000. This is an excellent version of FX7. TVC could repack this, maybe add a few paint updates, if you will, but this one is awesome. Now, Chris from Hasbro has said that it would be very difficult to make a figure like this these days with all the costs involved. Now, I'm not sure if Chris meant if they were to make an all-new version of this, or if it's feasible to simply repack this old figure if they have the old molds. I just don't know how that would work. But here are the classic Kenner versions of these two medical droids. Here is my 21B, it's the 41 back A 21B, and then very recently I got the 41 back A FX7 to go with him. These are just such classic card backs that we're still missing in TVC. Original 96ers, give us an all new 21B on this classic card back. Give us a repack if you have to of the Power of the Jedi version of FX7 just to get these card backs out there to go towards completing the original 96. Now, the other thing I would like to see Hasbro do is to give us a new version of this scene with a Luke floating inside the back-to-tank. I think that would be really cool. This was a great set, by the way. It's just outdated. It had a little tube. You could fill this thing up with water and blow bubbles. That was a really neat idea. But the Luke inside is rather cartoonish. And so it would just be really cool to get an updated version of this. You know, you could include the Luke in his diapers figure with the set. But yeah, back to tank set would be awesome. Would love to see all three of these things come to TVC. Next, I want to move over to Dagobah. Now, I don't have much of my collection to show that's related to Dagobah. All I've got is the Yoda that we have in TVC. And first and foremost, I think we need an all-new Dagobah Jedi training Luke Skywalker. We've got the Yoda. He comes with the backpack. We really need Luke in his training fatigues. We did get the Cave of Evil special action figure set, but that came with an extremely outdated Luke. It was a rehashing of the 3 3/4 Black Series version. And let me tell you, those arms are terrifying. This is a awful Luke Skywalker. We really need a definitive version finally. And we need him on a standard VC card back. You could put it on a card back just like this one that the Black Series did. That's an excellent film out. And if you're gonna give us a Dagobah Luke, you gotta give us a Dagobah R2-D2. Again, just like the Black Series did, you could use the same film out here for the TVC version. It would look excellent. Now, I would like to suggest that they actually give us a Yoda Hut playset and include the R2 in that. We've already got the single release Yoda. Give us Dagobah Luke, and then give us an awesome film accurate Dagobah Yoda's Hut playset. Not a HasLab. I'm not talking about something like that. This would be like a Pulse exclusive, similar to the Jabba / Boba Fett throne room. Not as expensive as that. Somewhere in between a hallway playset in the throne room playset perhaps. You could have a split shell format where you could remove maybe the back half of it to expose the inside of the hut to set up scenes like that. Or if it saves a lot of money, just don't have a back completed side. It's just kind of an open backside so you could just turn the playset around and then have the inside. That actually might be more cost effective. But if Hasbro put this out as a playset, I think fans would be all over it.
R2.
Next up, I want to go to Bespin and let's take a look at the carbon freezing chamber. Of course, Hasbro gave us this carbon freezing chamber playset in, I think, 2021, and a really missed opportunity was it did not come with an Ugnaught, and we still have no Ugnaught in TBC. This is a legacy version of Ugnaught. They gave us 2 in the legacy collection. That was a great line, gave us a lot of different characters. Here's the other one, and they're not terrible by any means. I just think they could be a lot better. Plus, these are very expensive on the secondary market to get a hold of. And bottom line, we need this classic original 96 card back in TBC. I can't believe we don't have this one yet. Again, it would have been brilliant to pack this in with the carbon freezing chamber playset, but that's not Hasbro's MO to put all new single release figures with these playsets. Typically, it's usually a repack or, another version of a figure that's already in the line. Next, we have to have an all new version of the Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett. This Boba Fett is over 15 years old. It looks terrible compared to what we get these days. It's got an old head sculpt before Temuera Morrison came into the picture. I know a lot of people think we already have way too many Boba Fetts in TBC, but the Empire Strikes Back version of him is the most iconic version of Boba Fett, so we've got to get a new Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett in the line. Next, we really need a detachable limbs C-3PO. I'm using this Saga Collection one. It's not very good. The head doesn't go all the way in. This is that electronic one. It's just barely hanging on there. And, we've been needing an all-new C-3PO for the whole franchise of Star Wars. But if you got us a new 3PO, then from that, you could make a detachable limbs and get us this classic detachable limbs ESB card back in the vintage collection. I love this one. This is one of my favorite Kenner figures I have mint on card. So yet another original 96er you can knock out and help complete the scene using the carbon freezing chamber. Now, as far as the Han Solo goes, this is the Prisoner Han from that 2-pack that came in the Jabba playset. And it's a decent one. It was a repack at that time. He doesn't look terrible. I would like to see an updated version of this guy, but it's a lower priority. Arguably, the most iconic scene from Empire Strikes Back is the first actual meeting between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. And I'm here to tell you that Bespin version of Luke is absolutely horrendous. He just looks like an oaf. I don't like the shape of the mold. The head sculpt is not very good. I thought they did a pretty good job on the hair, but his face looks terrible. I don't like the paint apps on this particular Bespin Fatigues Luke, and he just looks really awkward. And I just think this is such an important and iconic version of Luke that we need to have an all-new version of Bespin Luke in TBC. They could put it on this classic alt card back since we already got the other card back before, and I think this is just a no-brainer. Again, I know people are going to say we already have so many Lukes, but this is such an iconic one. You got to do it right, and you got to get a definitive Bespin Luke in the vintage collection. Now, real quick, I just want to talk about the vehicles, and similar to Hoth, I think we're in pretty good shape. You've got this Cloud Car pilot. He is outdated, but he still looks really good in my opinion, and he's just going inside the Cloud Car, and so you don't need him to be perfect. Now, this Cloud Car is not TBC, it's actually the Legacy Collection version, or actually technically it's the Shadows of the Dark Side, and it's got some kind of play features that are a bit silly, but it still looks really good. I don't know if they need to redo this one. I would love to see an official TBC release come out, especially for newer collectors. But if not, this is just fine. I would say that's a lower priority. And as far as Boba Fett's Slave 1 ship, I think we're fine there as well. I think this is a great release. It's got some nice play features, and I thought that the paint apps are pretty good as well. Especially the bottom of the ship actually has some really awesome weathering. The kind of weathering that Hasbro just seems to skimp out on these days. So definitely think we're good on the Slave 1. It's a great ship, and you can still find it on the secondary market pretty easily. And finally, I want to talk about the Bounty Hunters. Now, if you followed my channel for a while, you know I'm very passionate about the ESB Bounty Hunters. They are some of my favorite figures to collect. Let's just go down the line, starting with the one that started it all, VC01 Dengar. This was a fantastic figure. TVC really kicked things off nicely with this figure. Look at that face sculpt. The backpack, everything about this figure is awesome. Unfortunately, he does have the swivel hips. That's the only thing that could use updating in my opinion. The rest of this figure is just awesome. So I think he is the lowest priority for what we need. Next is the IG-88. Now this was an excellent figure for its time. This came out in the Saga collection, the pre-TVC, and it was a great one. But it is still outdated now. The body parts are pretty rubbery, and the paint apps could be way better. I want to see a metallic paint similar to what Black Series did on their IG-88, but it just needs a little bit of improvements here and there. Great paint apps, and it would be an awesome TVC figure. We got to get IG-88 in the line. Now, we talked about Boba Fett when I was looking at the carbon freezing chamber. Again, way outdated. He just doesn't fit in the line anymore. He is extinct, and so got to get an all-new ESB Boba Fett in the line, of course. Next up is Bossk. Now, Bossk is starting to pick up a little steam. People love Bossk. He's a super cool figure. This Saga collection Bossk was amazing for its time. Great head sculpt. He's just a little bit outdated. He's got the swivel hips. You just can't really pose him. He can't really sit down properly. And so we just need an all-new version of him. But we definitely need an all-new TVC-worthy Bossk on that classic card back. Original 96er. Got to get Bossk in there. Probably my second highest priority after Boba Fett as far as new bounty hunters go is 4-LOM. Now this is not a TVC 4-LOM. This is the Droid Depot 4-LOM from Disney, and that was an awesome figure. But the TVC 4-LOM we have is terrible. It is a repack from the 30th anniversary. He looks all jacked up. The color isn't quite right. It's not terrible, but it's just not quite right. But the mold is just so outdated with those silly swivel hips and just the broad shoulders. I don't like it at all. I want an all-new 4-LOM. If they got us a new C-3PO, they could leverage a lot of that mold for a new 4-LOM. And then last up is Zuckuss. Now this is the Legacy Collection Zuckuss, which was an excellent figure. Great looking mold. It is a little bit outdated with some of the articulation, but it's still really good. I don't want to say they should repack him. Now we'll get to that in a minute. They actually did pack this guy technically in the TVC. We'll look at that in a second. But I still think we could use an updated version of this. And more importantly, we just need him to get officially into the line on an official standard VC card. Now here is the SDCC exclusive 2-pack of 4-LOM and Zuckuss. This was an homage to the classic Kenner where they reversed the names. And this has a Zuckuss on there. Of course, it says 4-LOM. That's an homage to Kenner naming him wrong. But so we do have it in TVC, but this isn't a standard VC card. It's a VCP. It's an exclusive. And so I really would love to see, get Zuckuss in there on a standard VC card and have it with an updated version of Zuckuss rather than another repaint of the Legacy Collection version. And lastly, I would absolutely love to see Hasbro release a playset of the Imperial Star Destroyer bridge from this scene where Vader's hiring the bounty hunters. I think that would be amazing. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me that we need more Empire Strikes Back in the Vintage Collection. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram. Take care, and we'll see you next time.